Guys, so I've just come in from my daily runs, sweaty all over. Pardon me for that. But I just wanted to really speak a little about some of the truths which Moeletsi Mbeki is actually speaking about in this video. We know Moeletsi Mbeki, for me personally as an academic, Moeletsi Mbeki is one of those really sharp analysts I really enjoy listening to in South Africa. When he breaks down the society, the economic and political situations in the society, the future of South Africa, the past. When you listen to Mbeki, you really get educated. So one of the things he's really speaking a lot about, and for me, this was the most important part of what, this discussion with Alec Hogg from Biz News, is the fact that he says, and it's shocking for me anyway, but he says that most of the people who are into entrepreneurship in South Africa are the Indians and the whites. And for me, that's a really, really massive statement, because I've come to realize in my understanding of what really makes nations strong, I see that trade and business, right, at the end of the day, are what one of the major, maybe apart from government business anyway, but private trade by individuals in society are one of those strengths and pillars that build nations. If you look at Donald Trump, for example, and when he visited the United Arab Emirates, I think, the Middle East anyway, most of the guys who went along with him were like the likes of the guys, Elon Musk, for example, the guy who owns ChatGPT, Sam Altman. Yes, Sam Altman. He took the guys, the CEOs of Boeing. He took the guys of, I think, General Electric. Some of these really big business people in the US, those were his accomplices, apart from, of course, his Minister of Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. I think he also went with Pete Hegseth. I don't know if Secretary of Defense went along with him. But for me, what was most important on that visit was that the guys who went with Trump to visit the Middle East in sort of like a courtesy visit, trying to show, a gesture for peace and all that, were business people. So one of the things that also, when you read The Men Who Built America, it's a book, I really enjoyed that book so much. The guys who built America are really entrepreneurs. These guys were dauntless, they were fearless, they could take risks. At the end of the day, we see America today, almost all countries want to do business with the US because they have one of the largest consumer markets anyway in society. And when you have a product, bro, you want to sell in the US. So that's what makes one of the things that I see that makes a country grow. The amount of businesses, all right, business people that actually understand entrepreneurship. One of the things that when I speak to my American friends, although many of them have jobs and salary and all that compared to most of my friends when I have to in Europe, but one of the things I usually find across my friends in the US are the fact that they really want to start businesses. They speak about owning businesses. They speak about creating businesses, and that's what entrepreneurship is: the ability to create a system whereby you can trade a certain product or commodity for a certain amount of profit, and rather than living on salary, it's not as if living on salary is bad, but rather than living on salary, they choose to live on profit. It's a different mindset altogether. Now, Moeletsi Mbeki is actually arguing that in South Africa, where we have the majority blacks, all right, and these blacks are, those who actually, these BBBEE like policies have been promised to probably improve their lives. He argues that the majority of the entrepreneurs or the guys who do entrepreneurship in South Africa are white and Indians. All right, that's a powerful statement, because for me, this BEE thing, if we argue that most of the companies in South Africa that have been started have been given a portion, maybe 36%, or I don't know how many percent it is, to black, people of disadvantaged groups and all that. By now, I would expect that the amount of black people in South Africa conducting entrepreneurship to a scale whereby, we can actually argue that there's a healthy competition between black, white, Indians, and colors in the business space, entrepreneurial space, should be at least a certain par. But he still argues that a really large number of blacks are still, probably unemployed, not able to venture into entrepreneurship and all of that, in spite of this, large-scale BEE-like policies that have been set in place in South Africa. I have a truck coming. So Moeletsi argues that in spite of all of these I think I was listening to one of the guys from the Institute of Relations. He calls them premiums or premiums anyway. But in spite of all of this amount of money that has been taken from many companies to establish themselves in South Africa, I would expect that the amount of remittances that should be accrued to the black community to at least encourage entrepreneurship so that there can be a healthy competition, at least between the black, white, Indians and colored in South Africa, would be healthy. But Moeletsi is still arguing that the majority of people who do entrepreneurship in South Africa are still whites and the Indians, and leaving out the blacks and the coloreds. These black and the coloreds who, in my Nigerian head, I'm actually expecting would have been the recipients of the, of the, will I use income, or so to speak, the remittances that would have been accrued from these BEE-like policies, all right? But yet we still have a majority of blacks still dependent, and maybe coloreds as well, but I think also some whites, but a majority of the majority in South Africa still depending on SASSA grants and handouts. And, I think he really is actually bashing this whole BEE thing, arguing that this is not really a sustainable path, for South Africa going forward, and especially the blacks. I see on my channel a lot of blacks are really angry with me when I speak about these things, but truths have to be said, man. When we come to Nigeria, and I really wish some of the black South Africans can be able to save some money to come into Lagos, Nigeria, to see the hustling spirit.
So the average young person growing up in Nigeria, I'm there often. The average young person growing up in Nigeria is not waiting for any government grant. Because they know it's not coming.
Sure.
They're not waiting for it. They're not waiting for any government scheme to fund their business.
Go get customers. That's where the money is.
That's why I'm shy. And I speak from experience, right? These are people that when I started interacting with them, I was like, whoa, the hustle spirit here is unreal.
Sure.
We don't have grants. And the guy I was speaking to yesterday, he was thinking that, in me trying to help him understand that the whole thing with having a grant every month and thinking that that's the end of the, that's there's more to life, all right? He thinks I'm angry that in Lagos or in Nigeria, we're not able to have these grants. But no, Nigerians sort of have decided, it's almost like even in Indian society. See the rise of India, the young guys in India. When you go to the internet, you see these guys doing massive, things in the digital space, creating businesses, learning new skills, and all. There's more to this grant. So that's my message. Not like as though I'm frustrated and angry that we don't have a SASSA 350 grant system in Nigeria. No, but it's the argument that black people, colored people have to wake up, smell the coffee, start demanding for more. There's more to this world. There are more countries to travel to. I've traveled across the world. I see many people doing different. There's more to life than So this is my message to many, especially the blacks and the colored. And I think that's one of the things that Moeletsi Mbeki, even though he's trying to really be cool, in his savvy way of explaining these things, he argues that the most people who still conduct entrepreneurship in South Africa are still whites and the Indians. And something has to change. Something has to change so that healthy competition among the four racial groups we actually argue all the time that make up South Africa, white, Indian, colored, and blacks, actually would be healthy. But I think it's really important to really listen to how Mbeki really foregrounds this problem so that especially as blacks, coloreds, Indians, and whites, we might be able to understand how to help each other so that at the end of the day, we rise above this, limitation that many people have argued that the ANC is actually putting South Africa under, and then everybody starts empowering themselves. I think that would be one interesting one. But let's quickly listen to Moeletsi Mbeki analyze these issues and share your thoughts. Let's have a robust discussion. Share your thoughts in the comments.
Is the Donald Trump tariffs clearly, from the conversations that I've had with people in the United States, people close to the government as well over there, there is a back channel that's happening. They say that they're very unhappy at a lot of the way things are being structured in South Africa, and black economic empowerment, or the way that it's implemented at the moment, is one of the red flags. Now, there's a heck of a lot going on with Trump and tariffs and everything else, but you did wave that flag, or have been waving that flag for quite some time, and getting some criticism from it. Maybe before we go into more discussions, can you just in a nutshell give us your concerns with the way that BEE is structured at the moment?
Well, I I have been opposing black economic empowerment way back at the beginning of the whole process. If you remember, Alec, black economic empowerment started somewhere around 1991, 92, and it was triggered by the transfer of what were called high voting shares from a subsidiary of Sanlam called Metropolitan Life. There was a black company called New Africa Investments Limited, which was led by the late Dr. Motlana, and the president, our current president, was one of its shareholders. Now, these guys, there were about 6 of them, were loaned money by the Industrial Development Corporation, IDC, to buy 10% of the shareholding in Metropolitan Life. They didn't actually have to provide any security to IDC because Metropolitan Life underwrote the debt that they incurred. So it was a gift, literally a gift for them to buy these shares. Now, my objection was that after over 100 years of job reservation, the challenge that Black South Africa faced was to promote entrepreneurship. And to me, that was the most important challenge that we face, not to enrich politicians from the liberation struggle. Black economic empowerment does not promote entrepreneurship. If anything, it disincentivizes entrepreneurship because it gives people shareholding in existing companies, 26% or whatever it is. Since they don't have the capital, the company has to finance them. So it really is a system of buying favors from black politicians. And that is the second problem with black economic empowerment. In the process of buying favors from black politicians, you then create an environment for corruption because then anything goes in that situation. So first, black economic empowerment disincentivizes entrepreneurship, which we desperately need in South Africa. I mean, if we are realistic, most entrepreneurs in South Africa are either white or Indian. So we need to get the African and the colored into entrepreneurship. So that is a very important part of developing the economy of the country and tackling problems of unemployment and poverty is through entrepreneurship, not through enriching a coterie of politicians. So that has really been my objection. I was interested that Donald Trump is interested in our black economic empowerment policies. As it happens, I have been opposing them since 1991, 92.